Pedro, Justin, and Pete, we're back for another chat. New year, same old faces. Well, I don't have a drink. Now I feel left out. New year, same old faces. But today we're here to talk about bands that replaced their lead singers, and it didn't affect their career, their longevity, if you will. And we pulled straws, and I guess I'm the one to go first. So each one of us picked our three bands that fall under that we feel that fall under that category, and it's going to be our job to present our choices and hold them up in the court of not public opinion, but at least in the opinion of the three of us. So this should be interesting. So going first, I'm going to leave the best for last, right? So let me start off. I think you guys know what I mean by that. So I'm going to leave the best for last, and I'm going to start off with Arch Enemy. So to me, Arch Enemy is a band that falls under that category. They've had three different lead singers. Johan Leva for the first three records, Angela Gassau for the following five, and now Alyssa Whiteglass for the last two. Now, you can make the argument that Alyssa perhaps not as strong as Angela. There's always that camp within Arch Enemy fans that feel like Angela was the pinnacle. But I think Alyssa's done an extremely wonderful job with the band, and she's continued to hold that torch and move the band forward. I don't think you can make any argument whatsoever as far as the band being less successful now than what they were before she joined the band. So what do you guys think about Arch Enemy, about that pick?
Yeah, I mean, listening to Arch Enemy, I mean, I live in Sweden. So, I mean, listening to Arch Enemy and stuff like that, like when I heard Wages of Sin for the first time, that's Angela's, I think, first appearance.
That's her first record.
I mean, that bowled me over. It was like, wow, can girls sing like this? Like, it was amazing. It was just like, when I listen to Burning Angel and those tracks from Wages of Sin, it's just, I don't know what to say. You listen to the guy before, U1, he pales in comparison to this woman. It's just like, she literally cut his balls off
and ate them.
And just said, here you go. Like, she literally just showed the metal world, like, this is women's music as well. And I think that Alicia is good, but yeah, I mean, I've listened to Arch Enemy many, many years. Like, don't get me wrong, like, I love Arch Enemy, but yeah, I mean, Alicia's good. She's from Canada, Montreal, from the Agonist, or is it the Agonist? Yeah.
Yeah, that's where she started, with the Agonist.
Yeah, I mean, good band. I mean, she was awesome in that band. But I mean, for me, it was like Angela was like the pinnacle of like women growling and singing. So I think that in terms of Arch Enemy, choosing Angela over U1 was a fantastic choice. I mean, that was such a just
groundbreaking.
It was unheard of.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, I mean, we're gonna have a girl sing, and when she came up, she just kicked ass. She just delivered, and just every misogynistic dude in the audience was just like awestruck, like, holy fuck, this woman can growl and do things that this guy couldn't, and she made the band better. So I think that if Arch Enemy was to continue with U1, they wouldn't have been so big as they were now. And
absolutely, yeah.
And the continuation with Alicia, like, Alicia's good, don't get me wrong, but you know, I think that she doesn't have the same attitude that Angela did. Like, Angela was like an old school, like, carcass loving, old school death metal chick. She was just like, yeah, you know, I love this. Like, she was like the old school metal dude. So I don't think
and I want to get Pete's input on this, but I think if you think about it, that band progressed in the right order. You need to have Angela at the point where she came in, because she was trailblazing. She completely revamped, reshaped our thoughts about what Arch Enemy were and what they've became from that point on. I feel like Alyssa, her role was more just carrying the torch. She didn't have to reinvent the wheel. So she had a much different role in that band, which suited her perfectly when you think about it.
Before Pete says anything, I just want to say, like, yes, totally right. When it came to Angela was a trendsetter. Alicia just carries a torch, which is why I favor Angela more. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that Alicia's bad. It's just that Angela, for me, is Arch Enemy.
And I agree with Justin very much on this one. My first encounter with Arch Enemy was with Angela's voice. So after that one, I heard the album before with you over there. But I do remember that the band was stronger and better sounding with Angela. You know, they also evolved musically towards the state what they are right now. And it was fairly convincing back in the days when I heard Angela's voice the first time at the rehearsal room in Nosturi, Helsinki. And somebody put it on a CD player, like, dude, listen to this one. I'm like, so, like, what? It's a chick. I'm like, holy shit, really? Yeah.
That's exactly what I said as well. I was like,
she has a brutal sound. Yeah, it's an awesome growling sound. And what comes to the Alicia, I agree with you both that, you know, she's not just, but she is carrying the torch. She did not have to kind of like, well, she stepped onto a kind of like ready-made boat, just be the captain and bon voyage.
Yeah, that's I agree with both of you, and I agree with Justin. When I think of Arch Enemy, obviously the impact that Angela had kind of makes her the arch enemy of our thoughts. But at the same time, we have to give some credit to Alicia, because it's not easy to come in and fill those shoes. Those are huge shoes. Yeah. And it's not easy for her to come in, fill in those shoes, grab that flag, and continue to push the band forward. And if you look at their two latest records, which is War Eternal and Will to Power, super successful records. So it's not like the band took a dip. If anything, they continue to grow and expand their reach and their fan base. But like I said, two different people that perhaps joined the band at the right times. If the roles were reversed, I don't think Arch Enemy would be where they are now.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I also saw Arch Enemy with both singers, and they were both really fucking good on stage. So Alicia does not have to be. I mean, she's not any less worth than Angela. She does fucking amazing job on stage.
Alicia has nothing to prove. I mean,
that's still
she's amazing. Like the one thing that Alicia has over Angela is that she can actually sing as well, clean.
Yeah, true.
And Alicia can growl as well, just like Angela. The only thing is that Angela was this cynical, like this turn of like if you follow back like in the 90s and the 2000s and stuff like that, like with Swedish death metal, it's like Angela had that niche. Like she was like just the oddity. It was like, all right, like OTEP and other women that were trying to growl and stuff like that. Like Angela was really the spearhead for that movement, which kind of lifted them ahead. So I mean,
it's a little bit of nostalgia.
I mean, it's really unfair to compare Alicia to Angela, because Angela did so much for the movement.
Mm-hmm.
True.
So for anybody that says that Alicia doesn't have the chops, trust me, she has the chops. She has exactly what it takes. But it's not that. It's just that Angela was at the right place at the right time during metal, where they didn't need like this sexy Doro kind of like, you know, singing power metal and stuff. They needed this very grunty, like, fuck you, I can sing like a dude and I can do it better. And she did.
Yeah.
And she did it not only better, she did it 10 times better. Like if you listen to Wages of Sin, the Doomsday Machine, it's just it's mind blowing. So I mean, it's very unfair to compare Alicia to Angela Gossow.
I agree. I agree. I don't think you can. I think you have to look at the two of them the way I presented, which is they came in at the right time in the history of the band, and each one of them fulfilled a role that was needed at that specific time. That's it.
But
Yeah.
if you were to say to continue longevity, I think that Alicia's done a fantastic job at keeping the momentum. She's done a
because I also think she appeals to a much broader fan base.
yeah, but that's she can sing as well.
Exactly.
And Angela can't. She can't really do like the melodies and stuff like that. But that's where Alicia shines. She really lifts up that she can sing and growl, which is why that she's kind of pushed Arch Enemy to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Totally right. She's a fantastic singer.
So next on my list is Cannibal Corpse, right? So the way I look at Cannibal Corpse is, and I think this might be, I mean, this may divide Cannibal Corpse fans because there's a lot of fans that feel like Chris Barnes was Cannibal Corpse and George Corpse Grind Fisher is a much lesser version of Cannibal Corpse, and there's other fans that think the other way around. You cannot deny the longevity of this band. Chris Barnes was in the first 4 records, and then George came in for the following 10, 11 albums since. There's a new album coming out in April, so I think it's going to be number 11. You can't deny that huge span of time and how Cannibal Corpse still remain in the forefront of death metal. They're still an iconic band. And if you ask me, you can make the argument, I think, that perhaps the first 4 records have more iconic Cannibal Corpse songs than everything that's came since. But from a lead singer perspective, I prefer George. Maybe I'm alone in this, but
dude, I totally
just think he gives more.
I totally agree. But I mean, you know, I haven't really listened to so much Cannibal Corpse in the sense that I know every song and every album. But for me, Chris Barnes, like I always remember him from 6 Feet Under and stuff like that. Like when I started with Cannibal Corpse, it was with Corpse Grinder.
Yeah,
you know,
same with me too.
I had no idea that Chris Barnes was in Cannibal Corpse at all. It was just like when I discovered the internet and found out, like, oh, okay, you know. So I didn't really care. And for me, 6 Feet Under, it's just like it's always been a lot of drama. It's always been a lot of hassles. You know, they write good music. Not the last record. The last record is abysmal.
Yeah, let's not talk about the last record.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about the last record. It's absolute shit. But you know, with me, with Cannibal Corpse, like I can always remember like Corpse Grinder, and the reason is because he's just the most friendliest person on the planet. Like when you look at Corpse Grinder, he's just like, you know, he's this guy, like when you see pictures of him, he's got like teddy bears and stuff like that. Like he's just a fun guy. And then he does this guttural death metal, which says the opposite. That's why I like it. I like that contrast. Chris Barnes is just, I don't know. It seems like he wanted to do death metal to make some money off of Death, Chuck Schuldiner and stuff like that, and try to go heavier. You know, I don't know. My opinion has always been that Corpse Grind has been the better singer, and I like 6 Feet Under earlier, but no, for me, Corpse has always been Corpse Grinder.
I feel like Chris Barnes became the living image of what the image of a death metal singer should be like. If that makes sense to you, like, you know what I mean? He almost became the living meme of what the meme of a death metal singer is. I hope I'm making sense in terms of explaining this.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been the pun of a death metal singer.
Yeah.
He's basically like Spinal Tap, like of death metal singers. Or
yeah.
You know,
so Pete, what are your thoughts on Cannibal Corpse with George? For you discovered them with George, so that's how you know Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, and I fucking love Cannibal Corpse. They're a fucking awesome band. They're so fucking crazy with their riffs and shit. It's fucking cool. I love them. And yeah, with Corpse Grinder, I became familiar with Cannibal Corpse, and that is kind of like the Cannibal Corpse, what I prefer. Also, I do like the earlier days, the super chaotic death metal. It's awesome.
Yeah, but the 90s was so cool with death metal.
Yeah.
It was like when you listen to death metal in the 90s, like the early 90s, it was just so, I don't know, like they were really searching for their way and stuff like that. So every band sounded unique.
Yeah.
And Cannibal Corpse especially was also one of those bands that just kind of stuck out. And it was like,
I was just going to say, I feel like George also gave the band the stability that they needed in order to become successful and have the longevity that they have had. I think if Chris Barnes had stayed with Cannibal Corpse would not exist anymore. At least, perhaps they would have not have had the longevity that Cannibal Corpse has been able to maintain.
I think the big thing with Cannibal Corpse is with Corpse Grinder, he just doesn't give a fuck. But with Chris Barnes, he's always thinking about the business and stuff like that. So like, you know, when you start thinking about death metal, I have to write a song about dead bodies and raping them. That's like, don't think about it. Just write fun lyrics. Like you don't have to think about it. Like just, you know, nobody wants to do that. It's just you're writing fun lyrics hypothetically. Don't think about it as a practical sense. Just think about it as like this is hypothetical. I mean, and Corpse Grinder did that perfectly. It was just like, I'm stepping in here. I'm a cuddly dude, but yeah, I'm gonna write songs about mutilating dead bodies.
Yeah. One of my favorite song titles from them is the High Velocity Impact Splatter.
Yeah.
It's like, who comes up with that shit? Come on. High Velocity Impact Splatter.
And
you know, it's awesome. It's fun to listen to Cannibal Corpse. I don't know, maybe a non-metal person might disagree with this one, but I consider Cannibal Corpse as a fun band.
And if you're having a bad day, whatever you do, throw some Cannibal Corpse on, like the old Corpse Grinder stuff, like when he come in and just, you know, delivered. I mean, it's fun stuff. Even Chris Barnes' stuff is good. Like he was in Ace Ventura.
Yeah. They don't deliver the goods, they deliver the guts.
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't deliver the goods, he delivered the guts.
Yes.
So
I mean,
the last band on my list of 3 is Ensiferum. So
holy shit.
I know.
Right,
Can you
here we
believe
go.
that? So Ensiferum made the list. So Ensiferum started off with our boy Yachty with the first 2 records. And then our boy Pete came in during Victory Songs, and he's been a staple of the band for the last 6 records. And once again, you cannot deny the longevity of Ensiferum. You cannot deny the quality of the product, the quality of the music since then. I don't think they lost anything whatsoever. They just continued to grow and become a bigger and bigger band.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the stability that came with that album, because that was also Sammy's first record, right, Pete?
It was, yeah, and also Janne's first album, the drummer. So
and I think that stabilized the band and allow you guys to be as creative as you could be. And you cannot deny the success of Ensiferum. So here's a band that changes the lead singer after 2 records and never looks back. So Pete, what do you have to say about Pete? Coming in, how was it for you coming into those shoes and having to be the front guy?
Well, first of all, in 2004, when Jari kind of like left a split up thing to do his own thing, where he's still working at it. Do you got the time for that? Gotta put that one out there. Yeah, of course. But I was asked to just replace Jari for a European tour in spring 2004. And then they would kind of continue searching for a singer, guitar player for the band. After the tour came all the summer festival offers, Marcus asked me, can I do the summer festivals? I'm like, sure, why not? And then came 2005, then came 2006, and then he asked me, like, do you actually want to stay in the band? I'm like, sure, why not? I've been here for a couple of years already. Yeah. But honestly, if Jari would have stayed in the band and he would have tried to, work with Ensiferum and Wintersun at the same time, I think Ensiferum might not be around that much, actually.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't have so much with Ensiferum. Like, I've always known Pete as the singer. But when I first got my first dose of Pete, it was with Norther and stuff like that. And I mean, when I was listening to stuff that was coming out of Finland at that time, I moved to Sweden in 2007. So Children of Bodom, Norther, Ensiferum, bands like that were kind of big at that time. Like, it was like the wow, and like the guitars, stuff like that. Like, it was like for me, hearing that back then, it was like the pinnacle Finnish style. It was like almost thrash-like. It was really cool. So I have no idea how the original Ensiferum singer sounds, because I've never heard him. But I know
their upcoming album.
I will, yeah. But I think that
like 2036.
But listening from what?
I'm just throwing Yachty under the bus. It's okay.
From when I moved here, like, I mean, I've been involved in the Finnish music scene as well. Like, I mean, I was with Tolkki when he tried to do his, revamp after he left Stratovarius and stuff like that. It was weird, but I was lucky enough to hear like these bands while I was there. So I was just like, why don't we do something like that? That's much more fun. It seems to be the thing to do, Children of Bodom, like Alexei was doing his thing, Pete was doing his thing at the time, and it was just like, it sounded good. But yeah, I mean, for me, Ensiferum, I can't hear it without Pete doing his growls.
So I'm with you on that. I think the really interesting part is that for the fans of Wintersun, the best Ensiferum albums are the ones with Jari. But for those that really can appreciate what Ensiferum has done, you cannot deny the impact that Pete has had on the band.
No,
and to me, when I think of Ensiferum, I think of Pete. Like, I don't think of anybody else fronting that band. I've seen Ensiferum live. I think they're one of the bands that I've seen live the most, and I've seen them in three or four different countries now. So I've got to experience what they can do on stage. So when I think of Ensiferum, I think of Pete. I think his introduction to the band at that time with that album with Sammy, like we already said, the introduction of those new members stabilized the band. It gave the band a sense of direction, knowing that, okay, these guys are here. They're all in. They're not focused on anything else outside. Let's just concentrate on making the best music possible. And that explains the success of the band.
Exactly. I mean, the thing is that with Finnish bands, like, I live in Sweden, Pete's in Finland, there's always been this competition between the two countries. It's like always the same thing. Like, Finland, Sweden, always like this battleground for death metal. Like, we get along. We're all right. We're good. But,
all good.
With Ensiferum, especially, like, I listened to Norther as well, like, before I moved to Sweden, and that was Pete singing. And it was like, okay, all right, this is what's coming out of Finland. This is weird. This is new. And then I heard Children of Bodom. I was like, well, that sounds familiar. But I always compared, like, the singing and stuff like that to Norther or stuff like that. And then when I heard Ensiferum the first time, it was with Pete, actually. It was like, yeah, this is very indicative of Finnish thrash death metal. It was just, I can't picture it without Pete. So, I mean, Pete, you're an integral part of the community, and we fucking love you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely, I have nothing but respect and love for Pete. Not just because he's here, but really like one of the most down-to-earth guys that you'll ever meet. Super friendly dude, nice dude, and like I said, when I think of Ensiferum, I always think of him first. He's become the image of what that band is. And I'm not taking anything away from the rest of the guys. And I don't think I'm alone either when I say this.
Actually, it's funny. It's funny that you say that because now that I think of it, like when I thought about Ensiferum, they were always the ones that had the makeup under the eyes, like football players.
Yeah.
I always felt that Arch Enemy actually stole from Ensiferum in that sense. Like it was like
I have no idea about that one. When did they start that one? But Ensiferum had those ones already in the first album before that one, so we go like before 2000. So
I mean
late 90s they already had.
For me, I was like
face.
I was listening to like Ensiferum and Tyrisas and stuff like that was coming out of Finland, and it was just like I always remember that the Finns always had like this zany makeup, like they were always like trendsetters on that front because it was just like, oh, I'm coming from Finland, I need to do something, I
am ready for battle.
Yeah, we're gonna go take the battle. We drink some beers and we go to sauna after, and then we make sure that
then we kill you. Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. But
by the way, Justin, I love your Finnish accent.
Thank you.
It's very convincing. Yes.
Yes, it's very convincing. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you. I've been here a few years, and I can speak Finnish, to be honest. But it's been But I can't think of Ensiferum without Pete. So Pete, I'm not trying to toot your horn, but without you, the band wouldn't be the same.
Like even Pete agrees on this. I don't think the band would have lasted this long.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they would. And I think that that's integral. And I think that you brought something to the band that they so desperately needed in terms of a frontman. You're a very good frontman, and you kill it.
Thank you very much.
You're the gorilla glue of Ensiferum.
Yeah. So
you hold everything.
I'm the sticky dude. Thanks.
Thank you for being you.
Yes. So now, Justin, give us your 3.
My 3. Here we're gonna go into some depth. We're gonna go back to the hard rock annals, like the history. So my pick for bands that were good was actually Black Sabbath is my first, because you listen to the first 8 records of Black Sabbath, which are iconic, but then all of a sudden there's a little elf that comes trotting along. a little short dude by the name
on a silver mountain. Yeah,
exactly. He fell off that silver mountain and ended up in fucking Black Sabbath. But I mean, you got a guy that did Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, and I mean, Black Sabbath has always been like this. I don't know. They've had Ian Gillan from Deep Purple. They've had Glenn Hughes. They've had Tony Martin. It's one of those bands, like the bands that I'm thinking about, they're the bands that are like, they've been around forever and they're just changing singers all the time. But I think that actually with every step, they've gotten better with every singer. I hate 80s Black Sabbath. I'm not a big fan. I don't like Glenn Hughes' stuff. I don't like Seventh Star or stuff like that. But I love the Dio stuff. Like when he came back on Dehumanizer, that for me is like pinnacle Dio. It's my favorite Dio record of all time. Dehumanizer is just hands down one of the heaviest records of the 1990s. So that's where I stand. Like, what do you guys think? Black Sabbath.
Pete, give us your thoughts.
Well, to me, Black Sabbath I do know the band, have heard it, but never really listened to it that much. I know they are the Aussie times and Dio times. This is the Black Sabbath to me. All the other guys, what you were mentioning, were like, have I missed a lot of albums? I guess I have. I need to pick up my pace.
You missed about 14 years. I didn't want to spit my beer out because it's expensive. So
Yeah, don't spill it. Yeah.
I'm not too far off from where Pete is. Not that I didn't hear the other stuff with the other singers, but to me, when I think of Black Sabbath, I think Ozzy, Dio. That's it.
yeah,
To me, everybody else was just a passenger. To put it mildly, you know what I mean. So to quote Iggy Pop, they were just a passenger. I just never felt the same connection with the band as I did when Ozzy was there and then when Dio was there. Those to me are the two. And then if I had to pick one, for me, it has to be Ozzy, just because that's how I discover Black Sabbath was with Ozzy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very hard for somebody to discover a band with one setup, and then years pass. For some reason, there's always that nostalgic feeling that makes you go back to how you discover the band and to that original lineup that you discover them with. And for me, it has to be Ozzy.
but for that sake, that's why I picked this band, because if you think about this band, when they did Heaven and Hell, for example, they had Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, and Bill Ward. So it was the original Sabbath band, which is a different singer. So they had Ronnie James Dio. What did he do? Yeah, Heaven and Hell is like, I don't know. That's one of those like epitaphs in heavy metal history. It's just like, yeah, you can't top that. I mean, that record is huge. So that's how I discovered Black Sabbath as well, with Ozzy and stuff like that. But when we're talking about like singers that made bands almost better, I think that Ronnie brought just this charisma that was missing. Like this little dude from the States was just this huge persona, and he had this voice that just killed it. Like you can't. I mean, if you listen to Heaven and Hell, Mob Rules, Dehumanizer, even their later works with Heaven and Hell, The Devil You May Know, I mean, the guy's a monster on the vocals.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, yes, I discovered Black Sabbath with Ozzy, and I love that to death. Like, I can remember skipping out of school, smoking a joint, and listening to Seventh Bloody Sabbath on my couch, and just be like, this is life. This is awesome. But when I heard Dio die young, falling off the edge of the world, Mob Rules, Heaven and Hell, I was just like, holy fuck, what did I miss? Where did this guy come from? And he came from Rainbow, of all bands, to Black Sabbath. It was just like a weird thing. But they ended up doing this Purple album with Ian Gillan that was not so good. It was a really bad record.
One last question for you about this pick and the changes in singers, but the longevity of the band. Does that say more about how good the band was outside of whoever was singing?
I think the longevity of the band is actually totally dependent on Tony Iommi. He was the guy that carried that band. Like he did some stuff that I hate, but I don't hate it. That's a strong word. I dislike the Glenn Hughes stuff on Seventh Star and just the weird 80s stuff. Like I'm not a big fan of the Tony Martin stuff either. Headless Cross, Eternal Idol, Tear, like it's not my thing. It's not my bag. I don't really like that. There's a lot of synths. What I did like was like Cozy Powell playing drums, Tony Iommi on the guitars. You had like what's his name? Neil Murray on the bass. It sounded good, but it just, for me, wasn't Sabbath. It was just Tony Iommi carrying the torch. But what happened was, like I said, Dehumanizer, when they came back, when Sabbath was supposed to be Sabbath, like, they had their Aussie moment, and Never Say Die, I'm sorry, I don't care what anybody says, that's a shit album. Never Say Die is like, they should have fucking buried that deep, burn it with fire, whatever. But when Ronnie came in and said, Heaven and Hell, sing me a song, you're a sinner, it was just like, okay, this guy's carrying the torch for Black Sabbath really high. And when he waited for a good many years after that and came back on Dehumanizer, it's one of the heaviest records of the 90s. Dehumanizer's fantastic. So I think that Dio was one of the best singers to carry that band forward. So
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
That's my argument. But I don't think that any of the singers in between, Ian Gillian, Glenn Hughes, whatever, those singers in between, they have nothing on Dio. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So who's next on your list? Are you staying in Britain?
Here we go. We're gonna go with Iron Maiden.
All right.
So we're gonna dig in. We're gonna dig in deep. Here we go. Iron Maiden. So we have Paul Di'Anno, the first singer, who was brilliant. I mean, ushered in the new album, the new wave of British heavy metal, and did a good job at doing it. Little punk, some aggression. But I think that when Bruce Dickinson came along, man, that guy took it and ran with it. It was like, that's Maiden for me. Bruce Dickinson. There's no Maiden without Bruce Dickinson.
100%.
Yeah.
So if you listen to, like, I mean, Number the Beast, I'm going to get some hate on this, but I don't think it's their best album. I mean, it's the album they needed to do with a new singer. It was okay, but Bruce Dickinson came into his own on Peace of Mind and Power Slave and Somewhere in Time. Those are his best records. So, I mean, he really took the band forward in that sense. We're not going to talk about the Blaze stuff because that's abysmal.
Some people argue that some of their best albums are the ones with Blaze Bayley.
Do
you agree with that? Is there any merit to that argument, in your opinion?
I think that Blaze Bayley actually did some, the big problem was that he's very repetitive in his vocal styles. And he's always like singing like Man on the Edge. It's like falling down. Like he sings that pretty much the whole way through the song, like 400 times. Angel and the Gambler, 400 times. It's like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Don't you think I can save you? Don't you think I'm a savior? Don't you think I can save your life? It's like Blaze was always tedious in that aspect, but sometimes Blaze was really good, like Lord of the Flies. Fantastic song for Iron Maiden. Like, it was just a brilliant song. But to compare him to Bruce Dickinson, no. I don't think that Blaze can carry that torch. It was very unfair, and Blaze got a very unfair role to fill those shoes for those two records. X Factor, Virtual 6, or 11, sorry, Virtual 11. He really unfair shoes to fill. He couldn't do it. And I mean,
yeah.
who could after Bruce Dickinson? Like, when Bruce Dickinson's done Number the Beast, The Trooper, Power Slave, Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Caught Somewhere in Time, The Wasted Years, blah, blah, blah. How can you even think about jumping into a band as a punk singer? Because I think that Wolfbane is actually really punk in comparison to Iron Maiden. How could you think about doing those kind of songs? I think Blaze would have done well with like Killers or Iron Maiden, the first two records. He would have sang those really well.
Mm-hmm.
But the other stuff in the middle, from Number the Beast to Fear the Dark, not a chance. But
yeah,
in terms of singers,
I wouldn't want to be the singer who needs to replace.
No, I think Maiden could have actually just sat from 1992 until 2000, collected royalties, thought good, and like let Bruce do his solo career, and then he comes back. That would have been great.
That would have been a smart choice, in my opinion. But I mean, like I said, there's some people that would make the argument that the Blaze Bayley records are incredible. They just don't get their due. For me, I don't know how Pete feels about Iron Maiden, but for me, Iron Maiden is Bruce Dickinson, and Bruce Dickinson is Iron Maiden. End of the argument. There's no other, for me, there's no other argument. For me, I discover Iron Maiden with Bruce Dickinson in it. The best records of the band, in my opinion, he's in it. He became the band. The same way we were talking about Pete being the face of Ensiferum, Bruce Dickinson is the face of Iron Maiden. I cannot separate the two. When I think of one, I think of the other, and the two just come together. So for me, the band, the only reason I feel the band continued the longevity that they have, still releasing records to this day, still packing arenas, still touring all over the world, it's because Bruce went back. If Bruce didn't go back, I don't know if Iron Maiden would be releasing, Book of Souls. Like, do you see where I'm coming at? Like, I don't know if that would have been possible.
I mean,
Yeah.
I cried. I cried when I saw. I remember it actually very vividly. It was in Canada. I was on my way to school. There was a channel at the time called Much More. There was Much Music, but then there was a channel called Much More Music, where they were playing pop and stuff like that. But they also played new stuff, and it was really early in the morning. And I remember running downstairs, getting my Quaker Oats, and getting ready to go to school. And I saw Eddie on the TV because I used to play Much More Music, because they used to play like really weird stuff in the morning. It was like metal. It was all the new stuff within the 2 hours. And I remember seeing Eddie on the TV. I was like, holy fuck. And I told my brother, I was like, turn that up. Turn that up. What is that? And it was The Wicker Man by Iron Maiden. And I lost my shit. I was like, oh my God, who's singing? Who is singing? Because it was the down, down, down.
Great track.
Oh, it's brilliant. And as soon as I saw Bruce Dickinson, I didn't see these bangs that he normally had on hair. It was like the short hair Bruce Dickinson with spikes, like highlights and stuff like that. But
It was like his Bon Jovi haircut.
yeah, but he did it so much on Bon Jovi. So when I saw that, I was just like, I fell to my knees and I was like, yes, I can see Iron Maiden with Bruce Dickinson. And I almost cried because I was just like, yes, I have a chance to see this band that I love with the singer that deserves to be the singer. But in terms of this discussion, like, Paul Di'Anno was good. He was excellent. But Bruce Dickinson was that next step that Maiden needed to go further in terms of music and stuff like that. I don't think that if Paul Di'Anno was to continue on Number the Beast and tracks like that, I don't think he would have handled it. I think that they would have been like, I think if Paul Di'Anno was to sing on Number the Beast, it would have been a flop.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Peace of Mind would have came about. I don't think that Power Slave would have came about. I think the Iron Maiden would have been dead in the water after Killers if they continued on with Paul Di'Anno.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, Pete, like, did you agree with Bruce Dickinson being the face of the band? How do you see Iron Maiden?
I see Bruce Dickinson as Iron Maiden. Same way as you guys. It's my first and kind of like only encounter. The Blaze Bayley era has kind of gently been pushed aside. I heard the tracks when they kind of like came out, but after that one they have been not playing on my playlist. But I do have a cool little story about Blaze Bayley. We played in Hungary in 2010-ish on a festival, and he was there doing his solo stuff, and he was watching Ensiferum show, and we did the Stone Cold Metal song, and in the middle we have this kind of like Western theme thing, and Janne is playing the drums with dish brushes, since we wanted to have a softer sound, so those had just the fine tuning for that one. So he was watching it, and after the show he came to the backstage and said, like, dude, that was like really awesome. I've never seen anybody playing with dish brushes. And he's like, do you guys have any CDs with you, so what I could get, or ask from a record label or something? And I'm like, dude, you got money, you can go to the shop and buy it. I said, that one's Blaze Bayley. But I think the record label afterwards, we told him about this one. They sent him an album or two.
Oh wow!
I think Blaze Bayley, in terms of Maiden, like when we discussed Maiden, like, I'm a huge Iron Maiden fan. I love them to death. Like, for me, Iron Maiden is one of my favorite bands of all time. So with Blaze, I mean, he just got the poor end of the stick. He's not a bad singer. I've heard his stuff with Wolfbane and like his solo stuff. He's not a bad singer. Just he doesn't work with Maiden.
Yeah.
And
Fair enough.
you know, it is what it is. He's done some great songs. Like, don't get me wrong. Like Bruce still sings "Sign of the Cross," "The Klansman," "Future Real," and stuff from those Blaze records. So he was involved with some great Maiden moments. It's just that he couldn't carry the torch. But in terms of Paul Di'Anno to Bruce Dickinson, that was like a natural progression that worked every day of the week.
Yeah.
It's like you can't picture Maiden without Bruce Dickinson.
And on that note, who's the other band on your list?
Judas Priest.
Interesting. I mean, you can't argue the longevity of Judas Priest.
No, but you have also again 3 singers. You have Atkins, you have Halford, and you have Ripper Owens. I mean, and the thing is that with Priest, they were doing with Atkins as a singer. You know, he was just kind of like a bluesy singer. So their first record, Rockarola, even though Halford was a singer on that record, it suits the earlier singer better. We didn't really get a true version of Judas Priest until Sad Wings of Destiny. That was like Halford's debut initially. I think that him continuing on from being a pub band, Halford brought something new, something dramatic, something theatrical to heavy metal that he didn't realize that he was doing. It was just like, you had Deep Purple, you had Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, and then you had this like pub band that was Judas Priest with Atkins as a singer, and they kicked him out and needed a new singer. And I think that Halford stepped it up. I mean, if it wasn't for Rob Halford joining Judas Priest, I don't think that we would have metal as accessible as it is, as catchy as it is. Like all that 80s, and I really don't like 80s hair metal, but without Rob Halford, I don't think we would have had these sing-along choruses, because Judas Priest has always had like their pop, because of Halford, the pop niche on their sleeves. They've always worn their pop influence on their sleeves. They've never been about hard rock. Priest is always Priest.
Yeah.
And with Halford, he kind of cemented that, exactly what they needed. Because I think if they would have continued with Atkins, they would have probably been like Black Sabbath, kind of like a copy band, bluesy, heavy metal. They would have like fizzled out like a fart. But with Halford, it was just like they went on and they screamed. Like they've never done an album that was like the other one. They've always progressed as a band. Even with Tim Ripper Owens as well. Like, I mean, the first record that Tim Ripper Owens did with Judas Priest, it's not a bad album. I mean, the second one is abysmal, but the first one is really good. So, but Rob Halford, he's the staple within like hard rock. I mean, so many people owe him a great deal of respect and dues because of what they've done to make hard rock accessible. He was doing it way better than Black Sabbath. I mean, he was like the middle ground. Like you had Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin. So it's like if you didn't like Black Sabbath and you didn't like Led Zeppelin, you'd go to like Deep Purple or something like that. But then Judas Priest came along in 1974, and it was just like, holy shit, who are these people? Like you followed them along, and they got progressively just better. Every record was different. There was never you couldn't really pinpoint what they were doing. It was just like, who are these guys? But Priest has always been, thanks to Halford replacing the original singer, they've been a staple within heavy metal and hard rock. And I don't think that the hard rock would continue on without that change. So that's why I picked Judas Priest as a band that when you think about singers and longevity, because I don't care what you say, Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight, You Got Another Thing Coming, like they're still played in commercials today. Like they're just a staple.
Yeah.
I think they would have achieved that with the original singer.
What are your thoughts, Pete?
I agree with this one. It's definitely Rob Halford is the man on Judas Priest. So I'm not even sure have I even heard of the albums with the other singers ever.
Yeah, I mean the original singer didn't record Rock-a-Rolla, but that's if you listen to that, it's a shit record. But anyways, what do you think?
Yeah.
For me personally, I'm a little bit with Pete on this. I mean, not that I didn't listen to the albums with Ripper Owens. I just tried to forget that I did. But to me, Judas Priest is Rob Halford. The band's longevity has like attached to him being in the band, and one of the reasons I had a little, when I saw your list, I had a little bit of an issue with Iron Maiden and I had a little bit of an issue with Judas Priest, is because I feel like those two bands changed singers, not necessarily for the better, and then end up going back to the original formula in order to recapture the momentum that they had earlier.
Yeah,
so,
of course.
So that to me was the issue that I had. It was not like these bands changed singers and continued to be successful. Perhaps you could make the argument if they had stuck with whoever they picked after during that change, they probably would have completely tanked. So that was kind of my issue with those two bands, is that I don't feel necessarily, I feel like their success is completely tied into one specific singer and not necessarily to the ability to change singers and continue to be successful, which is the case with Black Sabbath, changing singers multiple times, but continue to be successful regardless of what reincarnation they're on. I feel with Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, that's not necessarily the case. And the fact that they went back to the well perhaps proves my point.
Yeah, but I think that with like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, for example, like, you had Judas Priest, they were pub bands for like 5-6 years, and they built up an audience, and their contemporaries were Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin. I mean, they were from Birmingham as well as Black Sabbath, so their contemporaries were Black Sabbath. So if you listen to those early Priest records, there's a lot of Sabbath riffage that pays tribute to Tony Iommi, like they're just giving respect to their gods. But I think they really come into their own with Halford, because he just kind of, I don't know, it was...
No, I agree with you. I know what you're saying. I just feel like their success is tied into those singers, Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, right?
Yeah.
So my issue when I saw your picks is just my personal opinion, is that I think their longevity is tied into the fact that they had those singers, and then when they changed, they realized that this is not working. We have to go back to that true and tried formula, and they went back to it, and that's what allowed them to have the longevity that they had. So to me, it just they became super dependent on that frontman.
I get that, and we didn't really discuss the rules of the.
There's no rules. That's why we're talking. There's no rules.
But the fact of the matter is, a lot of, like, if we say young metalheads, they have no idea that there was a singer before Rob Halford, and
or before Bruce Dickinson.
They have no idea that there was a singer before Bruce Dickinson.
Yeah.
So I think that that's important to detail, that, if it wasn't for these new singers, this band wouldn't have any longevity at all.
At all. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. So and on that note, let's move on to Pete's top 3. Hit us up.
All right, I picked these ones. I got Killswitch Engage.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Why did you pick that one?
Basically because they changed from their number one singer to a new guy, Howard Jones, and now they're back with their first original singer.
Yeah, a little bit of the whole Iron Maiden and Judas Priest vibe.
And
Kind of, yeah.
also, Howard also jumps in from time to time. For
He does. He does. Yeah.
It's a very
Which
cool.
is actually very cool. I like that. That is very cool. But I was taking a listen to the first album from Killswitch Engage. The musical style of the band has not changed in like a drastical way, you know, from the first album to the second album where Howard Jones popped in. And but Howard Jones is the voice of Killswitch Engage to me also. That is my first encounter with them. And since Howard Jones left, I think it's like 10 years ago. It's like fairly long ago.
It's a long time ago, yeah.
Yeah. And then Jesse Leach came back. He evolved as a singer a lot between the time he was not in the band.
Than what he was when he left the band.
Yes, and I was just taking a peek on his newer material with Killswitch Engage, and it's phenomenal. He's fucking good. So I think both of these guys fits to the band really freaking well.
Killswitch Engage, in my opinion, is a really interesting dynamic. Jesse Leach is incredible in the first stage of the band. Then comes Howard, which to me he could sing. To go back to your point about Alyssa and Angela, I think Howard gives you the growls, but he also gives you the incredible range. So he changed the dynamic of the band. But then Jesse comes back, and he comes back better than what he was when he left. So this is a band that changed singers, and it seemed to gotten better with every single change, even though one of the changes was back to the original singer. It's just it's kind of strange, but it kind of feels that way.
Yeah. I mean, when I was growing up and going to school in Canada, I mean, when I heard Killswitch Engage the first time, I hated it. I was like, I don't understand it. Like, I listened to like Swedish stuff. I was like, these guys are stealing, like from Swedish, like At the Gates and stuff like that. It's stealing. But then when I really heard the dynamics of Howard, you know, coming into it and stuff like that, I was just like, this guy can fucking sing. Holy shit, this guy's good. And you know, it built on me and it kind of grew on me, and I was like, I really like this band. You know, there was such a dynamic in the band that was missing in terms of like if we go from Jesse, like that first record, it just felt like they were taking from the first two records, they were taking from like, you know, Swedish Scandinavian metal. But when I heard Howard's, like I think it's called End of a Heartache or End of a Heartache or Heartache, yeah. So when I heard that first one with Howard, I was just like, Jesus, this guy can sing. It wasn't about the growls. Like, I love metal, but it wasn't about the growls. It was like, how can this guy carry himself as a singer? And he just delivered on all fronts. So I was like, this is new to me. Like, this is just, you were so used to like Slipknot or other bands, you know, the drums were always in front, pounding away, and everybody was always talking about double kicks and stuff, but nobody was ever talking about the singer, you know. And at that point in Canada, it was like, this guy can sing, like this guy's really good. And I thought that was really cool. Like, of the myriad of bands that were existing, like you had like Mudvayne. I think when Howard's first record came out, it was like Mudvayne's The Beginning of All Things to End. You had Slipknot, Iowa, like those records. Yeah, I mean, you had all these new metal bands that were so dominant, but then, you know, they couldn't really play. It was always down-tuned. It was always just basic, and not to say that it wasn't complicated. Like, they did well at what they did, but I think that Killswitch Engage was just a nuance of metal that North American metal needed to push them in the right direction. I think that Howard really gave them that push. Without Howard, I don't think that American metal would be what it is today.
I think this is a great pick by Pete, to be honest with you, because when I was thinking about these bands, they never crossed my mind. But now that he brought it up, I was like, wow, here's a band that's changed the singer, go back to the original, but it's just feels like they're growing. They're always growing. They're always evolving, becoming better, refining a few things here and there, learning from the past, becoming a more well-rounded band, if you will.
Yeah, but that dynamic was so key. It was like that was exactly what North American metal needed, because that was what it was lacking. And I think that with that dynamic, they just, Jesse was good. Don't get me wrong, but Halford was like light years better. The guy could sing and hit the tones, and it was just a perfect.
Yeah, he brought a lot of melody to the band more. With his vocals, the clean vocals, what he does, it's just really freaking good. The melodies are working almost like, I would say, perfect. So it's really fucking good.
Yeah, it's a really good pick, and I can understand it as well. Like I said, growing up there at the time, listening to it, like we had Korn, Limp Bizkit, and all that bullshit in the background. So it was nice to hear something fresh.
Yeah.
And we just, when you heard Killswitch Engage the first time, it was just like, what is this? This is like melodic. This is deadly. The singer's good. The growling's good. And most people heard Howard as that's their first introduction to Killswitch Engage. They had no idea that there was another singer. Just like with Maiden or Judas Priest. Like they had no idea there was a singer before that. So I mean,
same happened to me with Killswitch Engage. I had no idea that there was ever a singer before Howard.
Yeah, but I also like the dynamic that comes after, because Jesse was also really good after when he came back, and I like that sharing of the stage. They're
friends. I mean, it's not like there's this bad blood or anything like that between them.
Yeah, but I think there was a tour. I can't remember what tour it was because I was gigging as well, and Killswitch was playing as well. And I remember that Jesse came on stage, and Howard was also there, and they were switching off. So it was really cool to see like the old songs, and Howard would like provide like backing vocals and stuff. And then when Howard would do his thing, Jesse would be in the background doing his thing, like providing backing vocals. There was a really nice dynamic there that I don't think that a lot of fans really appreciate.
So, Pete, what's the other band, next band on your list?
Well, the next one would be Anthrax.
All right. I thought this one was interesting. Why Anthrax?
Yeah, that's weird.
Because they got shitloads of singers. I was just actually checking out, and I did not remember that they had so many fucking albums, actually. So I was doing a Wikipedia search on this one. I found out like, shit, dude, I missed a lot in between. And I was doing a quick research, and I'm not sure how up-to-date Wikipedia is, but I counted 7 singers.
Really?
Yeah,
really?
I think it's kind of fucked up.
I know of 2.
Yeah,
I can only think of 2.
Yeah, there's Neil Turbin right at the beginning.
Okay.
Then we got Joey Belladonna and John Bush.
Those are the only 2.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the only 2.
Yeah. Well, Neil Turbin is at, I think, the very first one only. After that one came Joe Belladonna.
Where did the other 4 come in?
What?
The other 4?
I have no idea. I was trying to check it out. I don't know who wrote those names over there, but there's like weird names on the vocals. Every now and then popping up.
Maybe like guest vocals or something like that. I
have no fucking idea who those are.
I'm gonna have to go and hit Google, because I mean, for me, to be honest with you, as far as Anthrax goes, there's only one Anthrax, and that's with Joey Belladonna. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, I remember as if it was today going to buy the first album without him. I can't remember what's the name of the record. White Noise. I think it's White Noise.
Sound of White Noise.
Sound of White Noise. So I went to buy the CD, and I didn't know they changed lead singers. I mean, we're talking about Portugal back in the day, no internet. Like the news traveled very slowly. So new album from Anthrax, I go buy it, I pop it in, I'm like, who the fuck is this on the vocals? What the fuck did they do here? And like, he's a great vocalist, but that was not the band for him. You know what I mean? Like, I just, it didn't do it for me. To me, when I think of Anthrax, it's Joey Belladonna, and that's it. I don't want to hear anybody else singing Anthrax songs. It's him. Leave it alone. If he can do it for whatever reason, just take a break.
Yeah.
Just don't put somebody else there. The guy is the band.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like when you listen to like old thrash, it's like, you can listen to Paul Bailoff and stuff like that, or Boloff, or whatever, how you pronounce it. But Zuza is the singer for Exodus for me. And the same is with Anthrax. I mean, yeah, you can't have another singer than Belladonna. I mean, he's the guy. So I mean, whoever came before him, that's yeah, I
Too
don't know.
bad.
It's too bad, but
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
Belladonna's dude.
Yes,
He's
it
the
is.
guy that made Anthrax what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
I
I
mean,
saw also Anthrax live at Brutal Assault pretty much right after when Belladonna came back. They fucking killed it. It was fucking awesome show.
Yeah,
I've seen.
I saw them in 2019 at Heavy Montreal, and they're like a fine wine. It was like they were 20 years old, all of them. The same energy, the same.
That's the thing. That's the cool thing. Like, I never liked Anthrax. Like,
Say what?
I didn't like Anthrax. Like when I was listening to like Metallica, Death, and Megadeth, and Testament, and stuff like that. Like I thought that Anthrax was kind of like the joke band. It was like they're a bit too fun.
I think the issue with Anthrax, maybe this is why when you look at the big four, Anthrax is like the ugly cousin. But I think a lot of the reasons for that is that Anthrax had a much different upbringing. I feel like Anthrax grew up in New York. It was around hardcore, crossover thrash. The influences on the sound of Anthrax, on their thrash metal sound, is completely different from the bands of the West Coast. Right?
Exactly. I mean, you have to look at it in terms of where they were at the time. I mean, of course, Anthrax was like, when you think of the big four, like Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica, they come from California. And then you have Anthrax, the bastard child from New York. It's like, I think that Testament or another band would be better in the big four, but Anthrax have a staple in that. And I always thought they were a bit of a joke band, but when you listen to them, like I saw them also like Pete, like here in Europe several times. And man, I think they put on a fantastic show. Scott Ian is always doing his typical stamping thing when he's playing.
Yeah, the stomp.
Yeah, always the stomp. His beard's always like this.
Yeah. What can I say? He looks a lot like me. I don't look like him. He looks like me.
Yeah, but you look like,
you can say it like that too.
Christian from Sorcerer, like the guitar player in Sorcerer, he's also got the big beard, and like I always think about Scott Ian when I look at Christian. I'm like, you look like that guy. But those, like Anthrax is just, I don't know, they've gotten better in years.
Yeah.
Like Joey Belladonna is one of the best thrash metal singers, and he still sounds fucking phenomenal today.
He does.
I think that actually of the big four, he sounds the best today than in the 80s. He's actually refined his sound. He still sounds exactly as he did, but he sounds exactly the same now. And if not better.
Mm-hmm.
Like when he's doing his performance, I mean, he's just fantastic live.
So who's the last band on your list?
I picked In Flames because I remember that, Pedro, you had Dark Tranquility in your mind at some point. I think on this
I
pick.
didn't have Dark Tranquility in my mind, but I decided to take them out. But okay, so why did you go with In Flames? Because I reminded you of something with Dark Tranquility. They kind of had a swap there.
They did have a swap, yeah. Like Mikael Stanne was over there in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then he went to Dark Tranquility and has been there since that day. So kind of like would In Flames actually be what it is today if Mikael Stanne would have stayed over there? I guess not. Maybe not.
I think so.
Yeah. So I think
agree.
it was a good switch from.
I think the
that
switch
kind
was
of-
perfect. I think if they didn't switch, neither bands would have achieved the success that they have achieved.
Yeah.
So this
so too.
is in a business sense, this is what I would call a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Two fucking awesome bands.
You end up with two great bands and the two right guys leading the right band for their personality and for their vocals.
Yeah, but three awesome bands because you're missing Ceremonial Oath, which was like the underground band of the other members, which is kind of cool.
Leave it to Justin to take it to the other ground.
But yeah, you had the when I used to rehearse, there's a place called Huset in Stockholm, and they had like Jesper Strömblad's old band, Ceremonial Oath. So it was them, Therion, Opeth, like old Opeth, before Mikael Åkerfeldt was in the band. But yeah, it was kind of cool to see. And then you had like this myriad of just Swedish people, like Tumpa from At the Gates. When he was forming At the Gates, like you had this collage of musicians that were just kind of trying to find their way. And you got At the Gates, you got Ceremonial Oath, you had Opeth, you had Therion. But at the end of the day, you get Dark Tranquillity, In Flames. They were doing their own things. So I think that, Pete, you're absolutely right. Mikael Stanne was probably better off with Dark Tranquillity. And I think that Anders took In Flames to a next level with music. You can't beat the Gothenburg sound.
Yeah.
I
But
never saw.
also, like putting out the point over here that Mikael and Anders, back in the days when they did only growlings, they sounded very much the same. Also.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and that's indicative of the Gothenburg sound because they were taken from Tum, who was in the Gates, and Thomas is, he's iconic. I mean, I love At the Gates more than. I'm actually not a big fan of In Flames or Dark Tranquillity, but
Sacrilege.
it's not.
Blasphemy.
It's a matter of taste, but
yeah, I know, and some people have none.
Yeah.
But you know, but I can appreciate it, but I never liked.
This is the time of this conversation where your audio shouldn't work.
Yeah, but I never liked In Flames. I like Dark Tranquillity.
Dark Tranquillity's album last year was just outstanding.
Yeah,
that record is just outstanding. I mean, like, anyways, I'm a huge fan of both bands, and I'm not one of those that feels like there's the old In Flames and there's the new In Flames. Obviously, their sound has progressed, has changed through times, but
yeah,
I don't, you know, I'm always the kind of guy that says if you want to listen to something that you liked in 1992, you can still go listen to that record. The record still exists, and it's not like the library's been burned. So, you know, listen to whatever floats your boat. I just think that both bands became what they are because of that switch. And going back, I don't think if that switch didn't happen, I don't think we would have either one of them still doing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
No, I don't think that either. I mean, for me, it's like I'm not a big fan of In Flames or Dark Tranquillity by any means, but I mean, they're absolutely integral in terms of heavy metal in Sweden. Like, if it wasn't for them, a lot of bands wouldn't exist today. So, I mean...
Now, Justin, let me tell you this, and Pete. So for us to finish off our very long conversation, without any explanations, if there's a band out there that could never change their lead singer under no circumstances, you might as well just call it quits. In your minds, without having to explain, in your minds, who that band would be?
Mikael Åkerfeldt, Opeth.
Children of Bodom.
Wow, great choice. I'm going to go with Motorhead and Lemmy.
Fucking good choice too.
Good
Yeah.
choice. Well, yeah.
And another one, without explaining anything, I just want to hear from you guys. What band in your mind changed the singer for whatever reason, and it went like to the toilet, like you just flush it?
Fuck.
I would say Motley Crue, Drunk Robbie, but I love that album that he released. But yeah, Motley Crue, Drunk Robbie.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go with Queen.
I would go with Queen as well because you can't beat Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
I mean, Alex Lambert is good, but he'll never be ever Freddie Mercury.
While Pete thinks a little bit about this, did you hear that they tried to record some new material with Lambert and they just couldn't do it?
No, I didn't know.
It was the news. They tried to record some new tracks with him, and it's just like, you know what? It's not going to work.
I thought it was a phase, but
apparently not. So,
Damn.
for you, who you think?
That would go down to toilet. King Diamond.
there you go.
Can't fucking change that.
Yeah. But
Wow, that was good. That was
Yeah,
good. King Diamond. Wow. Yeah,
had
I mean,
Yeah.
I almost feel like that's a mic drop that you can go any further. But to me, if a band that changed singers and it went down the toilet after the change, I'm gonna have to go with Norther.
yep, I can agree with that.
So, I started off with Ensiferum, finishing with Norther. I think is just the proper way of doing this today.
Pete,
Well, thank you very many.
you can walk away with the corner.
Woo! It's getting hot in here, man.
Today was all about Pete. We
Yeah.
started off with Ensiferum, we finished with Norther.
It's your day, Pete. You can walk away.
Apparently, yes.
Well, guys, thank you very much for your time. This was an absolute blast to talk to you guys on this topic. It was really interesting conversation. Thank you for the time. All the best, and we'll see each other at another video down the road.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.